Whoa.
He doesn't care.
Oh, I care.
You don't care.
Chat.
You don't care about me. You just don't. You just don't.
What's going on, everybody? And
What
I mean
is
that
going
as
on?
in the figurative. I mean that.
Keep going.
Keep going.
That's what he said. He said, keep going.
That's right. You have to keep going. Ghost Hunter, Sarcastic Grandpa, Thumb Pal Enthusiast, Iterator, Lumberjack Tim. What's up, everybody?
What's happening, everybody?
Dusty Hobbies.
What's up, Tim?
Yes, I was on time today. Yep.
Yeah.
Let the record
So was
show.
I.
We started right at 2 p.m. Today
So
I'm very
was I.
punctual.
I was here.
You were?
That was me.
Mo, welcome in.
We need to talk.
Yeah, what do we need to talk about, Jason?
We need to have a chat, Christopher.
Oh, no, we already have a chat.
Oh.
See what I
Really?
did there?
Yeah,
We already have a chat.
well.
Um,
Well.
yes, Mo. Yes. Buy a lotto ticket, Mo. Oh, on time. Holy crap. Somebody buy me a lotto ticket.
That's enough out of you.
That's enough out of yous.
That's enough out of yous.
Okran, Dunbris. Look at all these beautiful, wonderful, crazy, mixed up kids.
He's being nice to you, Chad. He must need something.
I don't need nothing. Hey, speaking of needing nothing, Blood Walrus, thank you for that sub. 12 months. That's a solid year.
What?
That's a solid year, Blood Walrus. Thank you. Tech Elf, good afternoon. Look at us. We're 2 minutes in, and you're putting paint on the model.
It's because
And
I
I'm gonna
can't
zoom
stand
in.
listening to you.
What?
I just got to be moving on. I got to find something to take my mind off it all, Christopher.
This is the only time that Jason and I ever interact anymore, chat.
For damn good reason.
This is it. This is it for us. Not, you know what? That's okay. That means business is
I came up
booming.
and gave you a pat on the back
You
and
did.
asked you how you were doing.
You did. I lied.
I care about my
Surprise.
people, chat.
You do
I care about my people. Very
I
important.
say that
to
in
me.
the very where it's things are going on. Things are moving.
I care about my people, chat.
That's right.
I walk around the office, make sure
He does.
everybody's doing all right.
You do. He cares.
And then I go do all my work to take care of all these people.
Yes,
And
Jason
to take
keeps
care
on
of you,
keeping.
chat.
That's right. You're the last people to get it, but guess what? You get it every day, 2 to 4 p.m.
Well, that's not fair to say. They're last in terms of time
Yeah.
on the calendar, but that's
it.
not actually true. Technically, if you're on the Discord,
Well, that's true.
you're some
Yeah.
of the first people other than the dogs and Jen.
That's true.
Okay, that's not true either.
Okay. There's so many layers to this.
There's
now.
a lot of layers here that I have to really think through because the reality is I come to the office. Okay, so I wake up, and the first people I talk to are the dogs.
Okay.
Because they're always up before Jen. Okay? So I talk to the dogs. I say, hey, what's up, girls? How we doing? Did we get some good sleeps? And they wag their tails and wiggle their butts and get some pets. And we walk off and I close the door on them and they're stuck with mom. And then I go poop, shower, and shave.
That's
and
great.
and then I come back and I talk to Jen, right? Who's now up and about doing her thing. And I say good morning to her. And then I usually talk to, well, lately I don't go to Starbucks because Jen started making coffee for us. With her espresso machine that she is a barista now.
Does she make hot chocolate in it?
No.
Okay. That's okay.
No. Not yet. That's not a thing we've thought about. But normally I would go and I would talk to the Starbucks people next. Then I come to the office and I do my walkthrough, and I say good morning to everybody.
That's right.
Give high fives where needed, and hang out for a bit. Then I go back to my office, and then I talk to the Discord.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
I see.
And then I talk to the rest of the world via social media and all that stuff. Answer questions.
Yep.
Well, I don't really do customer service anymore. We have a team that does that, but I get to do all the social media side of customer service. So if you see any inane responses on the internet to comments, that's generally me.
General me.
And yeah. And then by the time we get around to 2 p.m., I'm kind of feel like I'm bringing it forward to the people that were some of the first I spoke to in the day. As long as you're part of the Discord. If you're not on the Discord, this does not involve you.
Yeah. I guess then I take it all back. I
love out of all of that, you're like, I guess I take it all back.
Does everybody understand?
No. Nobody understands anything I just said.
They do.
I don't even understand what I just said.
I understand it. You just gave us your whole
I outlined my whole day.
bing bam boom. Now, an espresso. What kind of espresso machine do you have?
I don't know.
Okay.
Name some, and I'll tell you if it's it.
Mr. Espresso.
No.
Mrs. Espresso.
Also no.
That's
not a thing.
Bevel.
What's that?
A bevel?
Bevel?
Bevel. It's a type, I think. Bevel. Bevel. Yeah.
That sounds.
I bet you.
Maybe right.
Is it a big silver square?
It's a big silver square.
Breville.
It's
That's
a Breville.
it. That's what the name is.
Yeah, it's a Breville.
Thank you, Valley Val.
Valley Val. It's a Breville. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, okay. I gave. Here's a little insider.
Little nugget. Little tidbit.
I gave Gabe's parents a Breville, an old Breville.
An old one.
Well,
a hand-me-down?
No, not a. It was. They're decent. They're decent machines. They're actually really good. And I got one from my old job because they were getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Wow, it's broken." I'm like, "Oh, are you sure it's broken?" They're like, "We don't want to deal with it."
Yeah. So
it just was jammed, and I fixed it.
Sure.
But I never got into it.
So you gave it to them.
Shannon.
That's a good gift.
Shannon and the Fishers have it.
That's a good gift.
That's right.
We bought Jen for one after her saying for over a year, you know what I want?
A Breville.
And she would do her research, and she never spends money on herself.
Yeah.
Never, ever spends money on herself. So I had to be like, okay, what we're doing. Well, I think actually she finally did say, I want to go to Best Buy, and I want to look at these things.
Nice. Okay.
And so she finally bought one.
That's cool. They're good. It's especially if you drink coffee.
She had a lot of fun. It was fun for me watching her learn to use it.
Yeah.
Because it was super frustrating for her to get it right, get it dialed in. Because it has to have the right pressure and all this stuff.
Yes.
It's not just a push the button, get coffee thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun for me in a kind of a masochistic way, right? To watch Jen go through her varied states of emotional response to this machine, either making tasty coffee or making her feel like she didn't know what she was doing. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah. No, they are hard to master. The pressure, the amount of the grain, all that. Super duper John. Fresh super duper question right here. I noticed after priming my model the other day, paint beads up and spider webs away. Using a brush, not an airbrush, my brush had very little water on it, so I'm not sure what's going on. What causes this? You know what causes this?
Okay, so super duper question. You noticed after priming your model with what primer?
Yeah, that's our first question for you.
What primer? And how? Rattle can primer, airbrush primer? I assume rattle can because you said you didn't airbrush your first layer. Not that means much, but rattle can. What brand?
Pro Acryl rattle cans.
You didn't shake them enough. Was there a matte finish, or was it kind of shiny? Shake it more, apply less per layer. If you overdo the amount of primer, like if you just prime the model all in one pass, watch our video where I talk about doing multiple passes. Make sure it lays down nice and even. And then if you're having problems beating up, sometimes if you're using a paint that needs to be mixed better, things like that, and if it does any beating, just let that first layer dry and then put another layer over it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that just happens. I don't know what all this crap is.
Little Billy, Dauntless released tomorrow? No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, Thursday. Today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thursday, everybody.
Today's Tuesday.
If you all wanted to know, Thursday, we will be releasing our Dauntless brushes. So get ready. Philip said, don't you dare say tomorrow.
Hey, Phil, guess what?
I make the rules. Boom.
Hey, Phil, guess what?
All right, great. We can blame
Guess
Phillip.
what, Phil? Phil.
Okay. I don't know.
Guess what, Phil?
Yeah, no problem, super duper. How you feeling about this, Jason? You seem conflicted.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what all these materials are and how I want to paint them. We have a lot of stuff going on here, folks. She's got a lot of chinguses. I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to be doing with all of these. So.
Ellis, longtime listener, first time caller.
Hi.
Really inspired by the white town. I'm switching entirely to Pro Acryl for a new white scars project. Nice.
Nice.
What is the difference between olive flesh and ivory? Great question, by the way.
Olive flesh is a little bit darker, a little bit more yellowy. When you hold them up next to one another, you'll be able to see dramatically what the difference is. Based on like the digital swatch you'll find on our website and stuff, all the ivories tend to look the same, but guaranteed they are different colors. Ivory's a little brighter. Ivory is more of what I would call a good white replacement. Olive flesh is exactly that. It's a great highlight for flesh or for browns. I tend to use it on leather and stuff like that a lot because it's like a really bright beige, tan kind of color. I'm just going to feel our way around the model still and get base coats. That's where I ended yesterday, was saying that I think the best bet for a model like this is to just get some base coats on everything, even if it's just a particular color like green, paint some green on an area and say, that's kind of what I'm thinking for this. Because she has a lot of different material. And by that, I mean, there's like a lot of different thicknesses of leather, what could be some cloth, the difference between a strap on this armband and the straps on her actual arm, they're sculpted differently. And I appreciate that. The sculptor had an idea, but there's a lot of layers of material here on something that is actually, at first glance, a pretty simple model. There's a lot going
on. Pop Chicken. Question for Jason HDBC Craze.
Not answering it. Not answering it.
Oh.
You fools. I am not that person.
When you judge painting competitions, what is the difference between a finalist piece and a really nice but didn't quite cut it piece? Interesting question.
A finalist and a didn't quite cut it.
Yeah, very interesting question.
What's the difference? There could be a myriad of differences. That's kind of a how long is a piece of string question. So finalist and somebody that didn't make the cut is a much broader range. Is what you're asking somebody that's actually going to place versus finalists, people that made the cut and then who placed out of the cut? Because the amount of difference in models from people that didn't make the cut to people who make it to be a finalist and then the final winners, there's a big broad range from people who entered the competition and then made final cut. That can be everything from, it just wasn't painted well, to it wasn't based. I mean, if I walk through all of the things when talking about making a display piece or a competition piece, I consider them to be the same. Everything from the quality of assembly, does it have mold lines on it? Are there gaps in the model? Fundamental things that when you put a model together for display, you need to think about. A lot of times here we'll let mold lines and stuff slip because we don't care. It's just a model we're painting for the technique of painting. And so the final product doesn't really matter. Like on the towel that when Phil was putting it together, he was like, so how do I need to be thinking about this as I'm putting it together? I guess it's not a display piece, so just put it together, right? And that's fine. So there's simple things like that. Whether it's been cleaned, prepped, right, glued to the base correctly. And what I mean by that is that every model should have weight. There shouldn't be able to be any gap between the sides of the foot, the underneath of the foot, and the base it's sitting on, unless, of course, it's a flying model. A lot of people miss on that. Some of the best painters in the world miss on that. I would not allow them to win if I were judging, because they don't mount the model to the base in a way that gives the model any weight. It feels like a piece of plastic glued to a base. And so you need to be able to, if you're standing in dirt, have the dirt sculpt up around the edges of the boot. So it looks like they're sinking into the environment. Even if it's not mud, if you're just walking in loose dirt, your shoe isn't going to have any light underneath it because your weight is going to spread all of that out across the surface. So take those things into account. So then it goes into, your application of paint, whether you're using a lot of texture or not, whether you're painting it very painterly or going for a super smooth blended look, whether your airbrush work is finished or you just airbrushed it and are hoping to get away with that. There's all millions of things, right? Millions of things. Dauntless will not sell out, Mo. We have
a lot.
A lot. Winner versus finalist, Papa Chicken. So if we take the people that made the cut, and then you're having to pick the best of the best out of the cut, a lot of that is dependent upon whatever rubric has been defined for the competition. I prefer to have it be a more open, what is called an open style rubric. We're working with the guys at Green Banner Events to develop their rubric for painting for both team and single events. I did the big Champions Cup challenge with them when they were working with Frontline Gaming last year. This year they're out on their own. And developing the rules there is such that it's very clear to read. So, if there's a rubric in place, then you find out who followed the rubric to the letter of the law. And it's done based on math, right? It's like, okay, so how many of these 20 things that the rubric calls out did you nail? And if it's on a scale of, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 for each of those 20 things, you just grade the model and it should be easy. So it's all subjective, but it shouldn't be. It should be fairly objective, right? So again, we go back to, did this person do all of these things? Did this person do all of these things? If you wind up with models that tie in the same category, that's where you get down to the gritty. And you have to just take a subjective eye to it and say, okay, what do I recognize that one person did versus the other that maybe did better? Maybe it's storytelling. Maybe it's the intangibles like that are hard to countenance, and be able to just tell somebody, hey, I need you to tell a better story with your model. Your model is literally just out of the box, put together, put on the base and painted to the ultra highest level. But this person did something different. They posed their model more dramatically. They did a more dramatic lighting. So the storytelling can come into place. So there's a bunch of variants on how that works, because there's lots of times where you'll sit down and you'll look, especially if you're judging armies, the presentation of the army. If one person just has it sitting on the tray and it's all the models are painted, that's cool. If the other person has it on a diorama base and in an environment that the model base becomes part of and tells me a different story, and they're all identical the other way, the guy with the diorama base will win. Because the storytelling is better, the effort put forth is better. So there's a lot of those intangible things. I call them intangible things. They're tangible, but you get my drift, right? It's not that it was necessarily specified in the rules you had to do it. And that's kind of where it comes down to, Sometimes it's that I can see more brush texture where I didn't think it was intended to be seen on one model versus another. One of them has really smooth blends, or I find somebody who's used a very aggressive but repetitive texture across a model, and I really like the way that looks. It has a very good style to it, and that might beat out a smoothly blended model just because of the uniqueness. So there's a lot of things that feel unfair, and that's why I don't really like painting competitions, because it comes down to the subjectiveness of the judge and what they like and don't like. Maybe there's a color and they, subconsciously pick the thing that's in the colors they like better, because they'll nitpick the colors they don't like more. So that's why I don't like. That's why I like the open format rubric, where if you hit these things, you get a prize, right? In order to attain bronze, you do these things, and so if you do those things, you get a bronze coin. If you didn't do this stuff to get to silver, then you just remain at bronze. If you do enough to get up to silver, then you get a silver coin. If you do more and you get to gold, you get a gold coin, right? And then you get to the subjective stuff, which is like best of show and people's choice, and you allow that to be fun and pick some cool things. I was there in 18 during the bold pyro drought, There's never been such a thing.
Go center. Non-metallic metal every time.
Gold, specifically, is what he said.
Gold!
Yeah, Papa Chicken. But this is why competitions are so rough, and why I generally lead with telling people don't expect anything out of a competition. Just go to have fun. And if it's a particular instance where you can get some valuable feedback from someone you respect as a painter who's judging or offering the event, then that's great. That's worth its weight in gold, to be able to hear the judge tell you, hey, this is what I thought. This is what I think you're doing really well on, blah, blah, blah. But you have to have an understanding of some level of respect in that engagement. If you go to a local store and somebody's judging that you don't think is a great painter, then typically I would tell you don't enter. I'm very harsh on that when it comes to critical work of art, like, critical speech on art, is that it better be being given by somebody who I respect their ability as an artist, right? It's like the old, if I ask somebody how they liked a movie, right? it's not exactly like
That's a good point.
count on them to make a movie,
Well,
but they
yeah.
have to have a history of successes
Yeah.
in telling me about movies and be able to represent why they think it is the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, like Siskel and Ebert were highly touted as very good representatives of the theatrical genre because they would be honest with you and say, this is my kind of movie, but I don't think everybody will like it, kind of stuff. And they just had a more honest approach. When it's the visual arts, you have to find somebody that you respect for their opinion on things like that. And when it's technical, like painting a miniature, I think you have to have somebody who can paint a miniature.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like why I don't give much countenance to people or weight to people who come in and say, that sucks. You could have made it look better by putting brown wash on it and blah, blah, blah. And then you go look at their profile page and they don't have a single painted miniature anywhere.
Yeah.
And
No,
they're just like,
that's a good point. It's,
Nah.
you know, that's a very good point.
you have to be able to do before I will really respect you. So that's the first level, is look at who's judging the competition. Don't let it be just a store owner and feel like that, because then it's a social contest. And if you do decide to enter, just do it for the fun. Now, if you hit an open competition like Nova, the Capital Palette at Nova is fantastic. That's why we support it so aggressively, because it is a system where the rubric is down. If you hit a particular level within each category, they bring way more medals, because they expect that what if 80% of the field hit the rubric? Then they have to give out 80% of the field has to get pins, has to get prizes. And so they do it right. They go expecting everyone to win. And when you do that, now, as long as your rubric is still pushing people to become better, then people really enjoy that, because it's like, okay, I knew what the rules were. It was published. I feel like I hit these things. And when you don't get the prize, like, I know I painted this to silver level, but you only get a bronze. Then when you talk to the judges, you can say, hey, what kept me from getting silver? I really thought I had it dialed in. And they can tell you, and you can recognize it. You can argue your point if you feel like they're wrong. And it gives everybody a more better foundation to start from, to have the conversation, as opposed to, I just didn't like your model. It was too much red. Well, yeah, but that was what I was trying to do, was I did everything in monochromatic red because that's a story I was telling, No, I don't like red. There's just no rhyme or reason for that. I hate it.
It's a really cool way they do that, the whole judging process at Nova. For our art space, I feel like that's the best.
That's why it takes so long too, because
Yes.
everybody's judged against the rubric, and so they give it. They go through it and they hold everybody to the rubric, and
it's really good painters, like what you're saying. Like it was people that
tremendous
people respect. If I was judging, I like turtles. You win.
I like turtles. You win.
Sometimes there's too much red, though.
There can be too much red. Let's be honest here. That's why I picked that one. Zambi says, when I judge, cutest model always win. That's not true, Zambies. What you mean to say is the cutest horrific model wins. Don't let Zambies fool you that she likes cute stuff.
Earthworm Jim and trees. Done. You win.
She
That's for me.
Zambies doesn't like just cute things. It has to be cutely horrific or horrifically cute. Don't let her fool you. Mistress
fun.
of the night over there, trying to lure you into her lair and fatten you up for the kill. Bakes cookies.
Bakes cookies.
Can't trust them. Can't trust the Zambies.
Oh, we know.
Can't trust a Zambies. So that's not leather wrap. That's just...
What's that? On the
hilt of the sword is literally just the metal.
Mm.
It's not wrapped in leather because it doesn't have a beginning or end of the wrap. So I can either say that, the sculptor didn't know what they were doing, or what I would rather believe is that is part of, the actual hilt itself.
Yeah.
Which is unique.
Zambi says, I got my monument order. Whomever got the face stamps needs a raise. Nice.
We do that so that everybody in fulfillment has a stamp, so that we know if we have a problem, you can take a picture of your order, and we know who we can go back to and where it went, who pulled it, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a fun way for everybody pick the emoji things, right? So it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Yes, that is the model. Seraphine, Seraflon, Seraflufli, the Wraith's Queen bust.
I think using the competition as motivation and meeting folks is what's worth the effort. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. If you go to a place where a lot of people are going to be hanging out for the day showing off their models, why not put your model up there? It's fun. I'm just saying, don't go with expectations, right? I tend to think that, Vince just released his 500th video, the one that we shot the little excerpt for, right? And so I did an excerpt for Vince Venturella in his 500th hobby cheating video. And if you haven't watched it, you should. It's really cool. He asked a bunch of us in the industry to give a brief bit of wisdom that we've learned in all of our years of painting, and mine was my age-old quote of only judge your current model by the last ones you've painted. Don't ever judge against everything else out there in the world. And I think there's a little bit of that management of expectation that everybody needs when embarking on a hobby that is in the visual arts, is that you really just need to check your own progress against yourself and hold everything else out there in the world that you love as a good target to walk towards or run towards, however fast you want to do it. But don't judge your stuff against what your ultimate end game is necessarily. Just make sure you're making progress towards it based off what you did last. And same thing with competitions. I think it's a lot of fun. The biggest problem that I've always had with competitions, other than the subjective judging, is the fact that at the end, a lot of times you walk away feeling empty because you didn't get any feedback and you didn't get a ribbon and you didn't get anything. It was just come get your model. And you go pick your model up out of the case and you have nothing.
Yeah. No,
that's what's so horrible about Golden Demon. It's like, who cares?
It's like, hey, no, you didn't win. Have a nice day. See you next year.
Legit. And the judging at Golden Demon has for forever just been abysmal. It's like literally the quintessential what does the judge like competition.
Yeah.
And with no feedback on why I did or didn't get any recognition. Everybody wants a Golden Demon, and I can understand because it's GW, but at the end of the day, it's not a very good competition.
No, it's a good point.
To win a Slayer sword is no joke, because you're at the pinnacle of what you're doing. But at the same time, for everybody in the general ranks, it is just a kind of a very empty feeling thing. Tried out the gold non-metallic metal that was used on that Antonio El Tigre bust. Looked decent from a distance. Looked tarnished. Did it on the chest symbol of a Space Marine. Very nice. Good,
That's
Derp.
Cool. I'm glad you used it.
Found an FLG in your area. Nice. Crystal brush judges are super cool and tell you where you need to push and what was missed. You mean Capital Palette? Crystal brush doesn't exist anymore. Hadn't for a long time. So I'm assuming you mean Capital Palette.
Yeah. And those guys, they were judging for a long time, man. They take their time. It's a very cool process.
Yeah, and they do make, a lot of them make themselves available afterwards, which is super cool.
Yes, I was going to say that. Last year they had, where at the end of the day, they had all of those artists, the judges sitting there, and you could bring your model up to them, talk to them about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Das Fizzle, it was still, oh, no, Capital Palette's totally different. Crystal Brush was at Adepticon, and if you are talking about Crystal Brush, then yeah, they would hang out too. A lot of the judges would. They had judges from all over the world. They brought in very well-known people. That was at Adepticon. And yeah, it was good. The problem with Crystal Brush is that it was a, how to put this nicely. I don't have to be nice. They don't exist anymore. Screw those guys. It was a who's who contest, and nobody who wasn't world renowned already was ever going to win it.
Oh.
And if you didn't have somebody like Joaquin Palacios doing a custom sculpt for you, you weren't even going to be considered for contention in most cases, because all the people that were involved in it were so sick of looking at Space Marines and, all the standard stuff. And so what wound up happening is that, the big sculptors and the big painters would get together, do a one-off sculpt, paint it during the course of the year, submit it, and split the $10,000 prize between them. They'd each get $5,000 for a lot of that, which was a big chunk of money, for painting a miniature during the course of the year when you're getting paid to do stuff anyway. So it just was really, had reached a point where everybody knew that it was not rigged, because it was still a competition among those people, but it sure feels rigged to the common man. When a guy or gal puts a model in the case, it was like, well, you knew you weren't going to get much back out of it. But there were some amazing models.
TK421 says, you think there's a difference between being technically good versus an artistically great piece? That's an interesting question.
I think that the unique perspective that I can give there is that you are going to play those two off of one another. If you have a piece that may not be technically superb, but is artistically superb, they can balance one another out. Does that make sense? If they're going to lose, if you're only one or the other, you're going to lose to somebody who is both, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because being artistic is a lot of stuff. It you know, and you can ask 100 different artists what being artistic means, and I think that for me it's a lot about storytelling. How do you tell a story? You tell a story through color choice, contrast, and the light that you're trying to approach on the model. You know, posing, diorama, basing, background, everything tells a part of the story, right? Technical is all of that stuff like did you clean it? Did you put it together well? Are your blends nice and smooth? Can I see your brush technique? You know, can I understand what you were trying to do at every step? And is more object or should be more objective, whereas the artistic capability is purely subjective in a lot of cases. So the two balance each other fairly well. But it's easy to see that somebody who just slaps a lot of paint on the model and makes it very okay. So let's get Cosmo.
Yeah.
Right. Cosmo is a model that I like to talk about in this regard. Cosmo is not a model that was painted to go in a competition, number one.
He's a fun example, though.
But if we pull a model like this is very painterly because the big chonky brush strokes, wet, blended, fast. We painted this guy in an hour, right? On stream. And under a single stream, we got this guy painted. And the idea was to show you a study in unique color combos that can give you the same benefit of light and texture and everything that you want, right? But it was done super fast. Like, can you punch in super close?
Yeah.
You know, look at that, right? Big, chonky brush strokes and all of that. But it doesn't look as unrefined as it is because of the fact that it's consistently applied that way, right? It is made to be like, you know, a Van Gogh. I'm not comparing this to Van Gogh, but a Van Gogh where it's all just heavy brush strokes and it's not trying to be realistic. It's trying to be a particular style, present a certain way that he felt at the time. We weren't trying to do anything as artistic as that, but we were just slapping paint on. But this could be looked at as saying, oh, that's a great art piece. It would not survive the technical view against someone who had spent more time on their model, because people would pick it up and go, yeah, that's really cool, but you could have spent more time on it, you know, because I can see where, you know, your color choices, you know, just kind of like feels like you ran out of time, whatever, you know, the judge would say, and they'd be right, because what we were doing was just trying to show you that in a very quick amount of time, you could basically sketch light on a model with color and get a really cool foundation done, right? So this is something that, from an artistic standpoint, tells a really unique story, gets a lot of points for that, but would fall way short on the technical aspect, right? Because I could have spent more time on it and had it turn out even better than it already is.
Swifter Bear going off of that. Speaking of telling a story, what do you do when the concept of your paint job changes midway through? Struggling with that currently.
Talk to me about the concept of your paint job. Are you wanting to switch colors, like what we did here with the skin on her?
Is the story changing? Is that what you mean,
Pop back
Swifter
down
Bear?
to the paint desk.
Oh, sorry.
Right? You know, because we switched the color on her after I got to a particular point on the model where I realized that the chest plate wasn't steel. I couldn't do the chest plate metal because it didn't work. It just as a material on here. Could I have? Sure, I could have. My brain doesn't let me do that. My brain looks at it and says, oh, that's not metal, that's leather. You know, and so would I have altered course at that point? And actually, it wasn't even that it was metal; is that I thought it was skin, right? And so I was going to do dark skin because there wasn't as much leather around the skin at that point. I was going to do this as kind of like mummy cloth or something, which I may still do. But now we on to a bunch of hard leather armor, and so I changed it. So if you change that, then you have to take a step back. So you're hearing me walk through a process similar to that. Is it kind of not halfway, but immediately I recognize something, and now I'm going slower than I intended on this model because I'm having to find my way again. I had an initial concept of what I wanted to do. The actual material on the model, when I got in and started looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's not going to make sense color-wise anymore. Dark skin next to dark leather is not going to make sense. Light leather never really reads really well, so that didn't make sense. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do the skin in kind of a weird greenish, you know, almost undeady looking, you know, alien color, and then build up color around that. And so I've had to change it, and now I've just slowed down a little bit and I'm pacing myself a little bit better to find, you know, the colors that I do want to use.
And Swifter Bear says the story/lighting concept has changed.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to prime it and start from scratch, right?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
right?
But
if you have a particular dramatic lighting direction and then you want to change that, if you have painted the model with that contrast in mind, it's easier to level out all of your balance on the model by giving it like a light coat of primer and dragging all your colors down. And if you're going to keep the same colors, then go back and refocus them and brighten them up on the side you want and darken them on the side you don't, and adjust. You know, there's lots of times where people do that. There's no bad feelings with it, right? If you feel like there's a better story, you know, like if we decided to paint her and have the light focused on the head that she's holding out, like it's a lantern almost, and then halfway through we're like, oh, but I really think it would be cool if we just caught the head in profile and put the light from over here, you know, so we light up more of her because the head's not the focus, and then just have this in kind of fiery profile, like she's holding it out and you can barely tell what it is, and you change that, but all this is already bright. Well, yeah, you just kind of darken it all up and start over again.
Chaotic painting. I've been struggling with that issue while painting the Seraphim bust, thinking about stripping it. Interesting.
I don't like stripping. I think that stripping feels like failure, and maybe that's why I don't like doing it. But also, if you paint in thin layers like what we do and what, you know, I think most people do, then there's no harm in just giving it a light dusting of primer or another coat of a thin, like black brown or something like that, whatever your general environment color would be. Just take a very dark version of that, green, blue, red, whatever, and go over the whole model and then just start building back up, right? You've seen me do it before you saw me do it on the skin here. This skin was already painted, and then we just made it green. I didn't paint over it with a base coat even. I just started glazing over it with emeralds and jades.
You didn't reprime it.
I didn't reprime it. I just started doing it. It's small areas, and I'm confident enough to know that we can shift any color anywhere.
Oh, Orky Fish. I just tried stripping some Battletux. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, stripping models is horrible because it's tough to make sure you get all the paint off. It winds up in the hardest to reach places, which gives you, and then what you know is that none of the paint is adhered to the model correct. So if you paint over it, it strips it off further, and it just gives you all sorts of hassles. So I never strip models. I try to impress upon people not to think of that as a reality. Just give it a light dusting of primer again. Night Moon says, tough question on painting competition. How would you recommend one be ran to avoid the unintentional biases from judges and keep it feeling like new people would have a fair chance as well? You look no further than an open competition like I was talking about, something like Capital Palette, you know. So let me define what an open competition is supposed to be, right? Not all of them run exactly the same, but in general concept, what an open competition is that there's a predefined set of curriculum, rubric, right? Rules that are going to be judged by, right? Here are the levels that we're going to judge by. Here's what it takes to become bronze in a category, right? And it will tell you that here's what we're looking for. You do this, 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 and this, right? You have your model is based. It's assembled well without any gaps. The paint is applied evenly and not outside the lines. And you have a good representation in color and contrast of what story you were trying to tell. And maybe that's it, right? And so you go, I can do those 5 things or 6 things, and you do it, and then you put it in the competition, and you get a bronze medal. You're not judged against anyone else's model. You're judged against your ability to hit the rubric and follow the rubric. And then silver says, do everything that's in bronze, add these things, right? All your blends are super smooth. None of your colors are garish in their contrast next to each other, whatever, right? And so then you say, okay, you hit bronze, and then I look and see how many of the things you did in silver. And if you checked all those boxes, then you move your bronze to a silver. Again, you're not judged by the model next to you. You're judged by your ability to hit the rubric. Do what we said it takes to become a silver medalist, and you're a silver medalist. Unlike the Olympics, where you got to be the best at the time, that they're doing the judging in order to get the medal. If they ran it 10 times, you may not have won. Right? So sometimes that form of competition, especially with art. Now with physical competition, you get it, right? We had a race to run. I ran faster than everybody else. I got the medal, right? We had a race to run. My foot hurt that day. I'm the fastest man on earth, and I didn't even place, right? I get it. I will come back next time stronger. And that becomes a pattern of thinking. I grew up playing competitive sports, and so for us, when you lost, it sucked, but you knew you were coming back at it. For art, it feels a lot different, and it can make people never want to paint again. Because there's no objective test as to whether or not you were good enough to win. There is no fastest in the race. It was that, oh man, I know the store owner, I know that guy likes Jimmy better, and that's why Jimmy wins all the competitions, right? Because it's subjective. Jimmy may not be that great, right? I talk about it a lot when we talk about the psychology of painting competitions, and that what happens to a lot of painters is that you're vocal or visible in your local community. You paint miniatures for people. You do commission work locally, maybe on eBay, whatever, and people know who you are. They know you're painting. They come and ask you to paint models for them, and in your own little world, you're a big deal. Okay, and then you take your model out and you enter it in a competition at Adepticon, and it doesn't even get a medal. And you went up there all like, yeah, I'm hot shit. And then you put it in the tank and nobody talked to you. And you put it in Golden Demon. Nobody told you why you didn't get anything. You didn't get a commendation pin. You didn't get anything. And you're left going, well, screw those guys. And that's what I don't like about art competitions. I don't like that art is something that can be built up in a inconsistent manner, you know, like if your mom tells you how great you are at painting, and then you take your painting to school and everybody laughs at it.
Yeah.
Of course your mom tells you she loves your painting. She's your mom, right? But when it won't pass muster in a more competitive environment. And that's why I think that art shouldn't be competitive. But if it's not competitive against the other people, it's only competitive against your ability to hit the mark. I love that. So I love open competitions, because you know what you have to achieve. You may not understand it until you enter it the first time. So it's not a silver bullet. The first time you were to go to, let's say you go to Capital Palette this year, you go to Nova Open and you enter in Capital Palette. You can read what it's intended to do for Capital Palette, the rubric. You can see what they intend for you to do at each of these levels, and then you win. You think you did it and you go. You need to see it in action once and get feedback before you can just kind of walk in and feel confident that you know what's going on. Because even though it's written, sometimes it may not translate into reality the same way the words on the page do. So I do say that there's an instance where you have to go and experience it once, get the understanding, and then challenge yourself again. Doesn't mean you won't go in and medal anyway, but you might get a silver and you expected gold, right? But you'll learn why. And in that environment, they will tell you why. And it'll be by judges who you respect, who are able to show you models they've painted, where they can pick up one of their own models out of the case at Capital Palette and say, take a look at what I did here. All right. See how this works? If I saw more of this, you would have gotten a silver, right? You know, as it is, I'm seeing too many of you, the end of your brushstroke. You're pushing paint the wrong direction. You're leaving too much pigment in the shadows when you're painting with a highlight color because your brush direction is wrong. Artists can see these things. You know, we talk about it all the time on stream. I'm not holding your models, but when we do the reviews, sometimes I notice that. And I say, hey, one thing I can tell you here is that be careful when you do these types of things and choose these, yada, 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 right? A lot of people will have a lot of leather on a model and they'll paint it all the same. A judge would let you know that that's not going to get you to the next level because there's so many opportunities there to make all of those materials a different color, even though they're all leather. They're all different thicknesses, all from different hides. You know, leather can have any color on the planet. The fact that you only chose one and that choosing one color didn't tell a story, right? It was just laziness, right? That they'll be upfront with you and say, hey, next time all you have to do is alter your material variation a little bit. Give me some other color to these things and you're already a gold. Mm-hmm. And you'll go away that year and push yourself and come back because the only thing you're competing against is you. And I love that.
Yeah.
You knew a Jimmy that cheated it. How do you cheat at D&D? Like the person that cheats at D&D is the worst.
This Jimmy guy's the worst.
Dude, you are worst if you cheat at D&D.
Oh, nice, Orky Fish. Volunteer.
Awesome, Orky.
Nice. Cannibal, you're not going to be able to go. I'm sorry.
That sucks. Yeah, that sucks. Fudging rolls, sneaking bonuses on his character sheet that nobody was auditing. You know, Jimmy stuff. Damn, Jimmy. Somebody out in the crowd named Jimmy is like, it wasn't me. I swear. You entered the ReaperCon Open a few years ago. I got great feedback as exactly what I could do to get a higher model, plus told what my strengths were. Way more hopeful than cold tourneys. Oh, Agrippa, yeah, see, awesome. Yeah, and ReaperCon runs an open format as well, which is great, right? But it makes it feel like, and like I said, if you go in the first time just kind of feeling it out to see what it equals, then you will leave knowing what to expect the next time. And I think you'll leave a lot more confident in not only your own abilities, but the expectations of the judges. And I think you'll find in an open competition, it invites a more mindfulness environment that you can rise up in however far you want to go. So if you feel like you want to continue getting better and better and better, let's do it, right? Let's go. right? Because you can enter into it until you win Best of Show, and then I think you have to take a year or two off before you can win Best of Show again at
From Nova?
Capital Palette.
Oh,
At Capital Palette. Then you can win again.
Oh.
But they even do that, right? So that we don't get into a position where the same person who is so head and shoulders above everybody else, because that happens even on an international stage, you get one person that just constantly shows this just unique wow. And usually at Capital Palette, they get invited to be judges.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've got Chistoff and Eric Swenson and all these people who judge there now because they've achieved this level in mastery of the art that they really don't enter anymore. Now, people like Vince Venturella judges and still enters.
Yeah.
Sam Linz judges and still enters. A lot of them judge and still enter. Because they haven't achieved that level of mastery yet. They haven't won Best of Show yet, so they'll continue to push themselves. So you're talking to judges who are living this at the same time and who also are getting feedback. Watching Vince Venturella get told by some of the best artists in the world what was wrong with his piece was very humbling, right? Because you're watching a great artist take feedback, consciously develop his painting style over it, and that's great, right? That's all of us need that. I need that. Everybody needs that. Everybody wants to learn how to get better if you're truly in it for the joy of art. Because art's an ever-evolving thing. You never get to where you're done learning about art. Because you'll always find somebody who has a new trick up their sleeve, mashes two styles together to get something really unique. We all see it all the time. AMG Worthy is a ranking system where you achieve a standard. I don't know about the Worthy. I haven't ever asked Dallas how they judge it. There's always somebody better. The key is to learn from them and not be jealous of them. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I've had to remind myself as I get older that person will generally be younger than me now. Like sports.
Yeah.
The same thing was true in sports. If you were at the top of your game, the one thing you can guarantee is that it probably wasn't going to be somebody older than you that took your spot. That's a very humbling experience, right? Source says, all this talking about painting, can we actually see some painting? You bastages.
All this talk about painting.
You rat bastages.
Well, I think that's good info. Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny, Orky Fish. I just need to get this Earthworm Jim diorama done. Orky Fish, you're stealing my idea. Take it.
No, you can't just allow them to steal your stuff, Chris.
No, they're not. Well, actually, it's funny that you totally flipped my brain the other day when you said I had this whole thing in my mind about the diorama size.
Uh-huh.
I have just slashed it in half.
Oh, did I help you with that by just talking about the base size?
Because I love the big world.
Sure.
Sometimes, but that would take away from everything. Essentially.
Yeah, the environment swallows the picture. Right?
Yeah.
Think about when you frame a photograph. If you're taking a picture of your girlfriend or boyfriend out at the beach, and you take a picture of them, and they're this little silhouette against the sun, and you've got beach.
Yeah.
All they've become is something that distracts from the picture. You weren't when you were trying to take a picture of them. So that's the mentality I always say. Are you trying to show me the beach, or are you trying to show me your girlfriend in the picture?
Yeah.
Right? Are you trying to show me the model, or are you trying to show me the environment? Because if you're just trying to show me the environment, the model is probably not needed, which may ruin the whole concept because this was a model painting competition, right? Not a diorama competition or whatever, right? So you just have to be cognizant of that and make sure that you're giving it the due, because it is easy to get into the basing and let the basing overwhelm the model.
Yeah.
And forget what you were there for in the first place. And that's something that you will get judged harshly on, right? It's like, oh, yeah, you got all this crap on the base, and that looks great, In subjective judging, I'm pretty brutal because I'm like, you have this banner on this model that, you took an image from the web, let's say, and printed it out and laminated it onto the banner. And you got this nice, amazing painting. And I'm like, that banner that you printed out is better than your painting. So that won't help you. So you have to be thinking, right? It's stuff like, hey, I got some gold chain from, the dollar store to make chains for all of my corn berserkers to chain their weapons to their arms. And I'm like, and you didn't paint the chain because they're red and gold. And I'm like, well, that's going to dock you points. I do the same thing when people have tufts on their bases that they don't paint.
Yeah.
This is a painting competition.
Yeah.
Do not put anything on your model that is not painted.
Oh,
period.
Interesting.
Period.
Yeah.
Because you're showing laziness by doing so, and it's detracting from your paint job, right?
Yeah.
The only thing on a model that should be unpainted is perhaps the plinth. if you have a really neat live edge wood
Okay.
plinth or something, right?
Yeah, okay. But you can still incorporate that. I've seen a bunch of that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And a lot of people paint their plinths and stuff. And there might be some rare, obscure off case where I'd be like, oh, having that unpainted makes sense, but I can't imagine it. Like clear plastic canopies on airplanes.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I don't judge for the IPMS, right? Because I would be like, nope, nope, nope. If you're painting an airplane, you better paint the damn cockpit,
Yeah.
you know, because clear plastic has its own shine, has its own, weirdness to it that isn't reflected in anything else on the model at that point. So I'm brutal with that stuff. I am not your friend. I am, but I'm not, right? I'm just harsh with it because I'm like, yeah, take the time. You spent all this time painting. Why are you ruining your painting by, giving me a plastic palm frond on your base that isn't painted? Or it's gloss coated to make it look shiny when nothing else on the model that's shiny is gloss coated. All of your non-metallic metal or all of your other stuff is matte, and painted in good lighting. And then you put something on there that's like plastic and shiny. It's like totally detracting from your work.
What, Orky Fish? What about not painting swords on metal minis?
Fired. But it's supposed to be metal,
Wait
Fuse.
a minute.
But it's supposed to be metal. My argument would stand in court.
Blood Walrus. So what qualifies as painting a tuft? If you choose a tuft for the color, what does a painted tuft look like?
It's funny because the problem with tufts is the sheen of the plastic, right? These are like little nylon strands that are colored and then put into this, hot glue base or whatever with an adhesive on it. You glue it down. So each one of those grass blades has a shine to it because of the coloring and the material it is, right? Because just raw colored plastic at that point. I prime them, right? If I'm really doing a model where it's a display model, I put them on, I build the base up, maybe I keep the model off of it, build the base up, put the tufts on, prime it all, right? And then paint them back so I never worry about what tuft color it is. I will give you the release, the freedom to never care about what tuft you buy again as long as it's the right shape and size. That's all you need. Because you just need to buy the purple ones because they're generally cheap because nobody else wants them. I will release you and give you money back by telling you this. Buy the crappiest colored tuft that's in the most stock because you're going to prime it and paint it whatever color you wanted in the first place, and it will look better because it will look like your model looked, right? This model, the Guardian, right? The Guardian, I use the big house paint bristles to make my big weed stalks, right? You could have used like a broom that came with straw-colored straw. It's not straw-colored. It was just straw.
Yeah.
You could have cut out the straw and put the straw on there and had it just be that color. I used black nylon bristles out of a house brush, and then I painted them 3 or 4 different colors, right? The same exact colors that I painted the grass that's in the background there so that it all kind of disappears into it, right? It just kind of looks like it goes from physical to painted and makes sense. So all of this is painted. Because on a model like this, you've spent so much time painting everything else. Why would you put anything on the model that isn't painted? Anything. Why? Right? The stick in the background. This is a wooden dowel, right? This is, if I can get it on camera. This is a wooden dowel and a wooden dowel pinned across the front. Oh no, this is a piece of sprue. This is a piece of plastic sprue from like a 40K model, right? These are the sprue points on it. And then some 3D printed crap for the electrical deals, right? This is all wood dowel. I painted my own grain on the damn wood dowel. Pump in real close.
Yeah.
I painted my own fake grain on the wooden dowel. I didn't just dry brush the wood that was there, right? And I guarantee you, if you showed this to somebody, they'd be like, "Oh my God, like you made your own grain on that dowel," because the dowel was smooth, by the way, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of grain showing. So I had to paint my own grain. If you remember this on stream, we painted this on stream, and we painted all that grain all the way down this, whatever this thing is, 10-inch dowel, right? The same way we painted the grain across the deal on here, right? Whatever that, right across there. So just make sure that you're giving the same effort to everything you thought it was valuable to show me in your model, okay? you thought it was important to put grass on that base, treated it with the same level of importance as you did the model that you thought was important to put on that base. They're the same when it comes to storytelling. And so if all you do is take the tuft and glue it on there, that's not important to you. And it won't be important to me as a judge either, right?
I would say the same thing Soros was asking about. What about real rocks? Same thing.
Paint them. You can use all that material, but paint it, right? Same for metal chains, everything I've talked about. Paint it. If it's going on your model, paint it. There's no reason for anything to be unpainted. Not at all.
I painted the rocks on my Gargants.
You did, actually.
Well, no, but it's funny you mentioned this.
But a lot of that moss stuff that was on there, was that painted?
No.
I don't feel like it was. And that was a detractor from that because your idea was really good. The concept was great.
Look at my, so it's funny you mention all of this because I went back and re-primed over my Sylvaneth that I put flock on, like the tree bits. And I'm finding with an airbrush, I'm like, oh, I can really paint. It looks like the material, but it's painted specifically.
It's funny because people who ask, like, what would you color the tuft then? You'd color it the same color you wanted in the first place, but it would be painted and it would match every other bit of hard work you've done on the model.
Yeah.
It will not be its own version of color that is garish in comparison to a discerning eye versus what you've painted.
So now I got to reprime all my Sylvaneth models.
Everything.
Start over.
Now, it doesn't mean that I don't use tufts and just put them on the model.
Oh, sure. But you're talking about for more of that display.
Oh, yeah. I'm only talking about display and competition
100%.
Stuff. Yeah. If you want to do anything you want to do, put a natural rock on your model and blah, 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 and do all that for, your next army because you just need to get it done. Do you.
Yep.
I have nothing to say about that. Right? I may gig you if I see you in public and I know you.
I'd
be like, more rocks you didn't paint.
I've noticed that it is a lot of fun when you actually start airbrushing the flock and the tufts and stuff. Yeah. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah. But paint everything you thought it was important to show the judges. Everything. And paint it to the best of your ability. Don't skimp on the base. Don't skimp on that rock that you got out of your yard that was perfect. Don't skimp on that piece of wood that you picked up out of your dad's shop that was like just the right chunk size to look like slate on the ground or whatever it is you're doing. Give it all the time it deserves.
Wow.
That's what elevates your model because it really is a matter of apprentice versus master is the time spent, right? You'll develop the skill and then it becomes the effort that you're investing in it that a lot of people will recognize. I use a Dark Sea bin as a base for the steel, so we'll see how that goes.
How do you get paint into the little fibers? Thinning? ? Says Blood Walrus.
Yeah, thin. I use primer. I use our airbrush primer for the base coat because it tends to go in there very nicely, but you need to thin it. You're not looking for it necessarily to be a primer at that point. You spray prime it or do whatever you're doing to your whole model. And then you go back after it, and I tend to use the black brown primer is a great base, or the dark camel green, something like that, depending on what grass color you're trying to achieve.
So, Jason, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to hear your thoughts on this, right? So,
I'm being very animated today, Christopher.
No, this is good because you're getting me thinking about like how I approach, my basing or how I approach my models, right?
Uh-huh.
In my diorama that I'm thinking
Earthworm
about,
Jim, yeah.
The Earthworm Jim one, I'm kind of stuck on trying to figure out, do I just paint these things so do I just take the model, right, and just paint them besides the head of Earthworm Jim? Do I just paint them like Earthworm Jim colors and Psychro colors, or do I need to add additional pieces to make them look like that character, or should I use the colors just to depict the character? So example, Psychro has this big glass bubble on his head.
Right.
And has weird ass yellow armor, right? Mm-hmm. Do I just paint him yellow armor and the colors of Psychro, or should I be trying to add these wacky elements? Or do I use storytelling just with the color, and then the only thing is Earthworm Jim's head on the... It's almost.
I
fun-
think
it's
that
funny.
you know, again, it's like who's the main character, and Earthworm Jim is the main character.
Yes.
So you have an Earthworm Jim head that goes on a Space Marine suit, right?
It's going on a dreadnought.
On a dreadnought.
Yeah.
So you've got an Earthworm Jim dreadnought, and the dreadnought is fighting a Tzeentch greater demon,
Yes.
right?
A Lord of Change.
A Lord of Change. And so for people who know that the pop culture reference is going to impact,
Yeah.
they're going to recognize the Earthworm Jim part of it based on his coloring and the head.
Yes.
And then if they know enough to know who Psychro is, as long as your color scheme works on the other one, you probably get away with it. It is then an elevated storytelling experience to add like the bubble on the head and things like that as you can. I don't know how you do that on a Lord of Change because of the neck.
I know. That's kind of what I'm.
Because Psychro's head
about.
was right on top of his body
Now
like a human.
The thing I would change in the Lord of Change is that he has a gun that has a big hook. And if you would know if a Lord of Change had a big gun with a hook, that's Psychro's weapon because he has this big red gun with just a big hook on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm trying to think of, or do I just do it with color and tell the story with color? I don't know. It's more of
Could the
thinking
Lord of
about-
Change's neck be taken away and the head with a short neck put on its body
That would be-
and then a bubble over it?
That would be
Like, could you
dope.
convert it? Because that would be cool.
Oh,
I don't know.
man.
I don't
Well,
know.
now I'm thinking about that
Yeah.
because that's actually a dope idea.
Yeah, you got to think in terms of like what is possible. What could you pull off?
Dang it. I wasn't even thinking about that. I
Right.
wasn't even thinking about just not putting the full neck on there.
Right, because the neck is what ruins it for being able to do the
Dude.
bubble. But if you took the neck off and just put the head on it and reduce the scale of
Oh.
it, then could you put a bubble on it?
Yeah.
Could you come up with something? I mean, that's the whole world of conversion, and
Oh,
that stuff
wow.
can get you. You know, that stuff can be crazy.
Yes, Orky Fish. It's Earthworm's Jim gun. Yes, 100%. That's why the dreadnought I picked has got like it's just a traditional, I don't know. It just looks like a big plasma gun. I don't know what it is, but I am going to paint that like Earthworm Jim's gun for sure. The big just red and yellow plasma gun that he has. Interesting. I gotta use real dirt. Yeah, I could. Well, I already know what the base is gonna look like now. It's just I found this manufacturer or seller or whatever, a couple of them on eBay that sell these little plastic tires. So essentially, it's just gonna be on a huge mound of tires because that's what that level is in the '90s game.
It's like a junkyard or something.
It is all the whole level. Most of it is tires that you bounce on. That's it. I know, Orky Fish, making a clear head bubble would be rough. I don't even know how I would do that.
Well, I told you, you go and look and see if you can't find a.
Oh, I could glass blow resin.
No, the guy from Toy Story,
Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear has a.
Yeah, and do a
has one,
conversion.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
That's
got to
what we
be. There's
found.
other plastic spaceman toys you could find that have a clear bubble. Just find one that works.
Yeah, and then shape it that way.
Or go on Etsy and get miniature fishbowl.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
Just a straight up miniature.
Yeah, you know,
fishbowl.
it's funny that it's like when you think about these things, what does it resemble?
Yeah.
And then go look for that and then find it.
Mhm.
Because you can find like miniature fishbowl and you'll get a million of them, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
You know, and then just a little collar of some sort on there would be fun. Because you'll need to find one that the bird head fits inside of, right?
Yep.
And that might be a little tougher.
That's Dark Sea Ben you're using?
Dark Sea Ben, yeah. Dark Sea Ben.
And what colors did you use for the Guardian's grass? Asked Derpstick.
Oh, hell, I don't know.
Oh, that
Golden. I think I used dark gold. I think I used black brown, dark golden brown, and maybe that was it. That might have been it. I don't know. Man, there's some weird material on here. It makes it so tough. Try to figure out what's going on.
Little Billy. Who's Ben and why is his sea so dark?
Well,
he
have
okay?
you met him?
Ben is a amazing fun man. He's
Ben
a cool dude.
is really a positive human. He
He
wants
is.
the best for everybody. He's such a pleasure to be around. I'm
He's so
excited to
cool.
get to see him in contrast if he goes. I haven't spoken to him to ask, but I'm hoping that he's going to contrast. I leave for Poland in a couple of weeks.
Chat. Yeah, you're gonna watch me paint my Earthworm Jim diorama, and then we'll make Jordan ask all these, answer all of the professional painting questions.
While I'm at a painting competition in Poland.
Maybe I'll do that. I'm actually very stoked to start that project. I'm just having to put other projects down. I think that's where I'm at.
Put them down like a lame horse.
No, no.
Like old yellow.
I.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I'm putting down my zombie projects. No, I finished one Gargant. I made it about 70% through my next one. So I'm going to finish that one. And then I think I'm going to transition into the Earthworm Jim painting. Because I also just would like to paint both of those models. I've always wanted to paint a classic Dreadnought that had some kind of little spin-off.
When you say classic, is it a squatty square body Dread? Or is it one of the new ones?
Just a straight up Dreadnought. It's one of the new ones.
Yeah, it's one of the Redemptors.
I think they look cool. I like them.
They're neat.
They're fun. Oh, hey, Brannigan's Brushes, rating with 40. Welcome in, Raiders.
Welcome, Raiders. Yeah, I mean, the new Redemptor
cool.
Dreadnought is cool. It's definitely more on scale, which makes it much better than the old ones that were supposed to be huge and were never really that much bigger than... I mean, I guess they were bigger than the original Space Marines because the Space Marines were really squat.
Yep.
You know, no abdomen style models.
Yep.
But the new Redemptor is definitely more on scale. It's just, again, it's too modern. I think there was a problem, and I'm sure that there's a good reason for GW when they designed it, but there was a Gothic hardness, rough edge to all of the 40K Imperium stuff for so long.
Okay.
That didn't really seem forced. It felt like it sort of worked. It was like Dark Age of the Imperium, this is just too technically superior to what the Imperium would have. And they brought this Belisarius Cawl idiot into the fold.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, for some reason, he was the guy that was lambasted by the what are they called? Adeptus Mechanicus, right?
Okay.
They all hated him because he was trying new things. So they wrote this dude in there with this story about how everybody hated him because he was always trying to try high-tech things.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for all of the new stuff looking modern. And I'm like, so wait a minute. This guy somehow, on his own, has developed all this stuff that was far superior and developed it a long time ago.
Okay.
Post-heresy. It just never really sat well with me. It was lazy writing. So
okay.
I have a problem with it.
I feel you.
Is really what I'm saying. I have a problem with it.
I got problems with this.
They don't care at all what I say, but I'm just saying I have a problem with it.
I was going between just doing like a classic Space Marine so that there was the height difference. I thought that'd be kind of cool, right? Or putting him in Horus Heresy's body because I thought that would have been silly. Horus Heresy, that
Horus.
guy Horus, whatever.
Horus.
I'm sorry,
who? Space Marine, Earthworm Jim?
Yeah.
As Horus?
Yeah, I thought that'd be kind of fun because his head, if you look at that model, the head has space to take the head off and put a little Earthworm Jim head. I thought that would be hilarious.
It'd be cool if there was an Emperor one, so that you could do Horus versus the Emperor, and you have the Emperor as Space Marine or as Earthworm Jim, and you do this one, you need to put a bird head on it because you could take any model and put a bird head on it and make it Psychro.
That's true.
Right.
I also have wanted to paint a Lord of Change, but as a black Lord of Change, like a black bird, like a big raven. So it's all coming together, chat. I think I just need to start on it and ditch my other projects.
It's all coming together, he says.
Oh no, Derpstick says the Redemptor is apparently a pain to build. Oh no.
The newer one, it's because they have all the ball and socket. Like they've taken too many cues from Bandai, and that like nobody wants to move this thing that much.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? So it has a lot of like put the piston in the hole and then adjust it if you want to bend the leg this way and that way and this way. It has a lot of articulation, and that costs you a little bit of pain when building because it's almost too many variables and things you have to hold with 6 hands to get them to glue and dry correctly. You know?
I'm excited to
I don't
start.
have 6 hands.
I need to think about as I'm building this out what the poses are going to be. B-Town, do you have an opinion on painting instruction books like the Art of Blank series? Oh, just like instruction books.
I think the Art of series is more of an introspective on the artist it's focusing on. Dave isn't really trying to provide you with an instruction book. Those artists are just telling about their journey and how they paint, maybe. See, there's stuff to be gleaned from it, but it's not an instruction book. I'm not a what would I call it? A learned artist. I have never gone to school for art. The only 2 classes in my entirety of schooling that I did worse than a B on were art classes. I was a straight A student, and then I got a D in art in 10th or 11th grade in high school, and then I got an incomplete in college for the one art class I tried to take in college, because I just couldn't stand to be in a room where people were trying to teach me how to be an artist.
That's a good point.
It didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. You know, the whole, we're going to teach you how to draw a horse, and I've already drawn the horse. Yeah. You know, I was like, here's my horse. No, you didn't draw it the way I told you to. F. Like, but it's a horse, right? I don't get it.
Are there any? Oh, is that, yes, Artistic Outlaw? That is Dark Sea Ben. Yep. Orky Fish, are there some good vintage books out there that you like? You've talked about, what's the light book again? The
Light and Color.
Light and Color.
Hogarth's Dynamic Anatomy is a fantastic art book. But I usually talk about that one in terms of people who are looking to sketch and sculpt, because that's what it is. It's how to draw the human form in action, right? But it also has, you know, some really good line weight and things like that in it. But I don't know. I mean, anything that has to do with light and or color is going to be very good for you as a painter. You know, because I always say that not 100%, right? You got to choose colors and stuff too most of the time. But the bulk of what we're doing as miniature artists is creating fake light on an image, right? And so being able to understand how light reacts on different materials, different forms of shape, to create volumes through contrast is going to be your biggest need to know, just plain and simple. You can't get away with being a better miniature artist without understanding light. So if you can take the time to learn how light reflects, why it reflects, what kind of materials reflect, right? Then you commit that to memory and practice, and you'll be a better artist in no time. So yeah, Light and Color. Again, it's not a world I live in, so I don't study. Mm-hmm. My study is the world around me. That's just the way my brain works. I go out and look at something and say, what makes that happen that way? And now with Google, you know, I grew up in an age of no Google. So for me, it was all about staring at stuff and asking a bunch of questions that piss people off, right? Why does that happen? But why does that happen? Why does that happen?
Orky Fish says, I really need to paint more. My other half is asking me what all the paint collecting is for and picking on me.
Yep.
Well, that's just what I was saying. I'm in the middle of a project, and I think I just need to stop doing it and switch and just get over the fact that, like, hey, you're allowed to switch, right? Because I like getting something to a certain point and being like, oh, this is done, right? But sometimes if something's inspiring you, you should go that direction so that you keep doing the thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the rule of cool. You know, don't feel bad that you get lost in a project and don't want to finish it.
Yep.
You know, if it's creating artist fatigue, then stop and move on to something else.
Yeah.
The best video art book you've seen is a Twitch channel that has a very demanding chat. It sounds like a nightmare I had once.
Oh, panic bomb.
And a producer that refuses to put up a palette cam.
It's not a refusal.
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely, positively correct.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Are we wrong?
No, you're not.
There
I
you go.
understand,
See?
chat.
There
I
you
am. I am making it. I will make one.
There you go. Not wrong, he says. He's fighting it though, hoping we'll forget.
No, I'm not fighting it. It is truly on my things to do, chat. I'm not giving you a hard
Truly
time.
on
It
his
really
things to do,
is.
chat. Truly on his things to do.
Oh my god.
You know what else is on his things to do?
What's that?
Like visit Disneyland.
Oh, it's not though. Putting a pallet cam is definitely above going to Disneyland. Hey, speaking of Disneyland, Mondo, thank you for that sub. Oh man, Jason, now I know what to tell the lady about all these models. Got artist fatigue, honey. Got to go to work on something else. There you go.
I'm empowering you, chat.
100% Mo.
I'm empowering you.
Truly on my list of things to do argument literally never works with my wife, says the Punisher.
Yeah, can you take the trash out? That's on my list of things to do, honey. I'll get right to that.
That's hilarious. No, I get stuff done except for the pallet cam, which is coming. It's on my list. Oh, what am I going to do with chat? What am I going to do? What is this brown? Is it, Ask Sarcastic Grandpa, is this caramel brown?
This is dark green brown.
Dark green
Or
brown.
dark brown green. Green brown? Brown green? Yes.
Dripstick. Would golden brown would be good to dry brush onto a base that has crackle paint on it to make it look like a desert floor?
Sure, yeah.
That's
I remember, I always start with a darker color first.
Mm-hmm.
Paint it a darker color and then dry brush over the top. But yeah, if you've already got your base coat down and you're liking that, then that's great. Sand and like cracked sand, cracked earth can start with dark reddish. You can use even dark flesh as a base. Dark golden brown works really great under golden brown.
Ooh, this is a good question. Tadpole Jackson asks, any advice on where to start learning how to properly highlight skin?
I mean, we talk about that kind of stuff here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is so.
How do you start though?
Well, how do I say this? The reality is that skin is no different than learning to highlight anything else, right? The thing that I try to impress upon people the most is that no material is different to paint than any other material, except that you have to take into account how does it reflect light. Goes back to what we were just talking about, right? Like how does skin reflect light, or how can it reflect light? Because skin can be very different, right? Not all skin reflects light the same. Some people have very oily skin that looks wet all the time, and that's going to have a different gleam to it than somebody that doesn't, right? So how you highlight flesh is really just you understanding what you want to accomplish. Do you want to show wet skin, oily skin? What is the picture you're looking to paint? And then go that direction, right? But it's why I talk in these generic terms that are probably frustrating to hear, but I call it material focus. Flesh is just another material, right? I can take Chris's flesh and paint it like normal, or I can take it off and turn it into a lamp skin and then it paints differently. So it's just material. Don't be afraid, Chris.
I won't.
But it's all just material. Hair is a material, cloth is a material, metal's a material, wood's a material, yada, 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 right? Plant matter, whatever, rock, you've got all these things that are just materials. So learning how light interacts with those materials is going to be the key, because then you know how to highlight everything, right? You just need to go brighter on things that reflect more, right? And keep your highlights darker on things that don't reflect as much. But everything gets a base color, or everything gets a shadow base, a mid-tone, and a highlight at minimum. When you're painting, you have to think in terms of everything needing a minimum of 3 colors, right? They can be the same color, darkened for shadow and lightened for highlight, so it doesn't have to be 3 separate colors. You can add black to it to darken it up to make it its own shadow. You can add white to it to brighten it up to make it its own highlight. But everything you paint should get a shadow, a mid-tone, and a highlight at minimum. And now, when I say that, some people will fall into the trap of thinking that every highlight needs to be an equal brightness. Wrong. Look at yourself. Like your blue jeans, if you're wearing jeans, don't highlight to the same brightness that your skin does. your skin will have the same darkness maybe of a shadow like here under my brow, and then a mid-tone like across the top of my brow, and then a brightness like right here on this edge, right where the oils in my skin cause it to shine a little bit. So I've got a shadow color, a mid-tone, and a highlight. Okay. And so you can do that, but if you highlight everything the same way, if you go to the same amount of, it's hard watching myself on the TV to go to the right direction. If you go from the same darkness to the same mid-tone to the same brightness, right, on everything, then it looks like a disco ball, because everything's going to look like it's the same exact amount of shiny, and that's not how the world works in general, right? So when you say, how do I learn how to highlight skin? It's the same way you highlight everything. You just need to be able to control your highlights to match the type of material you want the skin to look like. You want it to be shiny and oily, then you highlight it a little bit brighter. How do you get to that highlight? You can choose to either blend really smoothly from one color to the next, right? Or you can choose to make big jumps like we do in non-metallic metal, where you go from your mid-tone to your brightest highlight almost immediately to get that shininess to it. That's that learned skill, is how to create that highlight, right? Because when we look at, let's pick a model here that has a bunch of different textures on it. What would be good? I got lots of models with lots of shiny stuff on them, that's for sure.
A lot of gold.
Let's grab something like the chrome. Pop in close on the chrome, right?
Dang, that thing looks good.
Right. So notice how things have different reflective nature. Her skin is a very bright, pale green, right? But the gold still highlights brighter. There's no brightness on the skin, even though it goes from dark shadow to mid-tone green to bright pale, right? There's still a brighter highlight on the metal up around her forehead, on that earring back there, right?
Yeah.
And so that keeps those materials separate. We know the skin is not made out of green metal because this metal highlights differently, right? Has a different amount of glow, a different amount of highlight, things like that. So everything highlights the same. Skin typically highlights very smooth. It goes from dark to bright in a smoother transition, your normal blend, right? As opposed to metal, which will go from dark to bright. Like you see, it's dark and then you have a bright dot in the center of that saucer, right? And things like bone that have a nice smooth blend across them too. They don't go from too dark to too bright. They go through all these changes in between, from the darkest side through all these midtones eventually to a bright color. And that's that blend that we do on things that are not overly shiny. When you start getting shiny, you start reducing that length of blend space. You go from dark to light quicker, the shinier the object becomes. What you struggle with is knowing how to put highlights on skin that doesn't just look like a blob of paint, especially if the Mini has a bald head. So what you're talking about is blending capability, right? So you're probably picking the right color. You're having a hard time not making it look like an island of color inside of everything else, okay? And especially when you're doing spherical things like bald heads, right? So let's talk about this real quick. Let's use some dark flesh, shadow flesh, tan flesh. Right. Let's just do something like that. Right. That's a good general generic Caucasian skin workup. Right. Let's get, what do we have that we could make this work on? We'll just paint over this crone. We will paint over this green skinned crone.
I have something if you want a gray one.
What do you got? Nah, this is fine.
Okay.
This is fine. I mean, do I need to keep this one for some reason?
No, I just like it clean. That's okay. I like the examples. You know me. I just like it when it's nice and clean.
Well, but it will be clean when I paint the base coat on it.
Here we go. Don't listen to the man behind the curtain.
He won't even give us a palette cam for crying out, but he's being a stickler over the model not starting.
No, I'm not a stickler. I just want it to look good.
You act like it won't look good.
It will look good.
Jesus. The crone always looks very uncanny valley when you paint her in normal skin tones too. Like
true.
The green and the purple always makes it feel right at home. But when you paint her with like more human, not weird flesh tones,
sure, then
it winds up being very crazy feeling. She's not the kind of character you expect to find without some sort of weird skin tone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Jason, you are gonna love this, dude.
What's this?
I'll show you. For drying models.
What's that? Oh, you got a little hand dryer?
So I do this for our tech stuff.
Oh,
But
look at that. That's not loud or obnoxious at all.
if you need to dry something fast, it's
Well,
great.
here, give it to me.
It's aggressive.
Is it hot?
It's cold.
Oh, good.
Watch out. Press that power button one. Yep. And you gotta press it 2 more times to turn it off. But it's kind of dope.
Oh, it goes to like super high speed.
Actually, kind of nice though.
Not horrible. It's very in the way though.
I can take it if you need it.
All right, so then we'll take some shadow flesh. Right, and the first thing that okay, so we have a dark flesh base. Okay, so when doing skin, I talk about this. We did a little video clip. I don't know if you ever posted it. Talked about the way that I blend colors, how you build up colors. It started with a base, and then 75% of the base, and then 75% of the midtone, and then mixing the colors in between.
I think that's the glazing layering one, the green one, right?
I don't remember. I thought I did it on my hand.
Oh.
I drew some lines on my hand in color. You captured it. I just don't know if we ever posted it.
I don't know.
The idea being that now I'm going to mix my next color, which is shadow flesh, with the dark flesh. And I'm just going to paint inside the areas that I did with dark flesh, focusing on moving towards the highlights. Okay. So I'm not going to paint the entire thing again. I'm just going to paint the high spots to start with, right? With this mix. So this is shadow flesh plus dark flesh, right? So I'll leave the deepest recesses still dark flesh, and I'll just grab the high spots on the skin, right? I'm not doing anything special here. Just leaving a little bit of area with dark flesh, right? In the underneath spots. You know how to move towards the highlight area. I'm going to assume that everybody knows how to do that. So that's the paint by numbers part of it, what we do, right? You're always just kind of withdrawing your paint into the high spots towards your light constantly. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm going to leave the dark flesh in the wrinkles and underneath the nose and things like that. Maybe I'll catch the septum area here, right? And I'm just moving color towards highlights with this blended mix. Big thing to remember is try to keep your brush stroke moving from dark areas to bright areas. That'll keep the pigment being delivered correctly and not build up unnecessary brightness in the shadow areas. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm only going to focus on the one side of her face, I think. Is that all right, chat? Or do you need me to paint everything? This eye's not painted over here, so it's going to be really weird.
I don't think you need to.
Let's just focus on this side.
Yeah.
I'll do just enough color over here so it
we
doesn't
get
look
the idea.
wonky.
We get the idea.
This is a good mid-tone color to make it to where I've got some shadow over here, but it isn't. Too bright. There we go. Right now, we can take just shadow flesh by itself. Now, I'm painting with these with just a little bit of water on the brush to give it a little bit of thinness, but I'm not glazing with it, right? It's got a good opacity to it. So this is just shadow flesh by itself. And now you do the exact same thing, right? But you withdraw the paint into the highlights even more. So I got to make sure I leave some of that blended color, right? So I'm going to pull it to the higher spots now. My brush strokes aren't going to cover as much distance. I'm only getting the top of this cheek, right? So that I have my mixed color and then my dark color at the end. Okay. Then we take the tan flesh, mix it in with the shadow flesh, right? In this case, when doing skin, the easiest way to get your blends nice and crisp is to mix each color with the previous color. So now I've got this tone, right? So I go from the dark flesh to the mixed color to the shadow flesh to the mixed with tan flesh color here. I may want that just a hair more shadow flesh in it. There we go. Like that. Like that. And again, same thing. You're just retreating this color up closer towards the highlight, which would be across the top of the eyebrow here. Right? This wrinkle, maybe up on the forehead in between the metal area a little bit. Right? And then just the outside of the area around the eyelid here and brow area. Even closer, tighter to the top of the cheek there. A little bit on the nostril. Maybe just this one corner of the other pinched brow. And then again, just tight brush strokes up towards the top of the nose. Right? Because the tan flesh by itself is going to be our last highlight. So we have to give ourselves enough space for the tan flesh to still sit and not cover all this up. But we got to leave all those other colors showing too. So that's the biggest thing when painting, is to learn how to retreat your paint into smaller and smaller areas, not cover up the work you already did. Make every color visible and worth painting with. Otherwise, you've wasted your time and paint, right? There we go. So now we've got some better highlighting going on all that. Right? And then one last pass is just tan flesh. And I'll do this a little bit thinner, meaning more water on my brush, so that when I'm painting with it, you can see through it a little bit more. See that? Because I don't have a color that I'm mixing after this, so I'm not going to blend anything else. So I need this to lay over the rest of the colors fairly thin. So that, pop in closer. Let's see if I can keep on screen. Can you zoom out just a bit?
Yep.
Or are we all the way?
About right.
Yeah, that's probably pretty good.
That's
right?
perfect.
Hang on, my eye is watering. Right?
There you go.
So now we've got a pretty good workup for the skin. But now in order to get these highlights to not make them just look like lines, right? We're painting with a little bit thinner paint. And then we're just retreating that highlight into the barest minimum of areas to get the effect. Right? So right here along the edge of this brow, right here on the edge of this brow. And again, one of the biggest things is make sure you're always moving your brush from the dark spot to the bright spot. Okay? So on this brow, the dark spot is actually over here. So I take my brush and I bring my brush stroke from that in, not too far. You don't want to come all the way over here. You just want to make sure you're starting in that direction and pulling it towards this spot right here, which would be the brightest. And same thing over here. I'm kind of starting at the edge of the brow and working it across, and then right there working it across. Maybe I've got a little pinch of brightness right here where it puffs out. Just let the shape of the model guide you in that direction. Right? Then I've got this pinch of the nose here, and I just want the slightest spot, right? Because remember, your highlight doesn't have to be a lot of paint to have a lot of impact. It's usually the smallest amount of paint you put on the model that has the largest impact, right? So you're not putting a lot of paint on there. Maybe right here on this pinch of the nose, maybe then along the ridge of the nose. We come up here. And for the spherical bulb of the nose, I'm just going to kind of stipple a little circle, right? I'm just going to poke the brush on there and stipple a little round area rather than trying to paint a circle. That way, the little dots kind of help it blend. Same thing with a nostril. I'm just going to right here at the high spot of the nostril, just kind of stipple some color on there. Stipple more towards where you want it to be bright, and then just kind of blend those dots out. Let them kind of extend a little bit further. It gives nice texture to skin too. And now you've got a neat highlight on the sphere of the nose there, because that's what that is. Now she's got this little pinch or little fatty area on the nose here that's weird. We get a little spot there. Maybe get a little brightness that reflects down in here. The eyelid on the bottom would just be bright right up towards the edges. Like that. Same thing with the top eyelid, kind of right in the middle is the only spot it's going to be bright. Right? So you notice I'm not using a lot of paint, and that's the biggest key. Thin and not much coverage. I'm not trying to put paint all over this model in a real bright way because you'll, number one, you'll overwrite all the paint you did before, which loses contrast, right? So like here on this part of the brow, fatty area outside the eye socket, right? I just want to kind of get, again, a little stipple of highlight right up here towards the top. I want to keep these neat little wrinkles that we've created with our brush stroke and focus right up there towards the top and a little bit as we go down. Right? I'm seeing all my colors that I've used so far. Same thing at the top of the cheek. Just little, almost just pokes of color along the top of the cheek here. And just reinforce those. Go back and do them a couple times. Again, if you feel like you're doing a brush stroke, make sure you're doing it from the bottom of the cheek to the top. So you're dropping all that pigment off at the top of the cheek. Got this little dip in here, so I want to put a little bit of brightness, kind of maybe right in here. I need more paint on my brush probably to do this. Oh, maybe not. That worked pretty well. Right. And then get a little bit more on my brush. Again, thin. I'm never changing the thickness of the paint here, thin opacity-wise, right? And then just getting most of it off my brush like we do when we're painting thin. And then I come back in here and got this little tooth causing the wrinkle of the lip to pooch out there a little bit. So I want to get a little brightness that follows that spot where underneath the tooth is poking out. And then probably just a little bit of brightness here as the lip goes. Maybe a little bit there to reinforce this little dip in color that is caused by that tooth. Right? So just a little at her smile line there. Maybe just a little here. Right? And then maybe just a little here and here where I have these wrinkles under her mouth. Just lightest amount of pressure. You know, I'm hoping that what you're going to see from this is, oh, I've been doing my highlights, just trying to put too much paint on, right? Then just a little bit, again, the chin is kind of a spherical shape. Hers is a little bit more elliptical and pointed, but I'm just going to stipple a little bit right at the point of the chin, right, to get some highlight built up there, and then just kind of tailor that out, just kind of touch a little bit around that area and brighten it up just a hair, right? There you go. You've got a very good way to do all of your skin highlight regardless of the way the face is shaped, right? This is just an old lady. She's got a lot of wrinkles, so she's got a lot of area around that you can play with and get more contrast out of. You know, you might want to punch a little bit of brightness down there, right? Bingo. Now you've got skin. Now, somebody was asking, like, you know, can you go brighter than this? Sure you can. You could go a stage brighter than this and it would make the skin look even shinier. You know, you could go darker than this, and you can see how with these three colors, we could create a whole world of different varieties of skin tones, right? If you leave more of the dark flesh showing, it becomes a darker skin tone. Hopefully that helps.
Jason, I would say so.
Well, I'm glad you would say so, Chris.
I love our texture trainer examples you do. They get me jazzed. And there you have it.
And there you have it.
Skin
it's that
tone
simple.
highlights.
Finish the owl.
Just get going.
Just finish the owl.
Just do it. I missed who asked the skin question about Baby J was a great monument short on the skin. Oh, yes. That he's got there's a short. Yes. Old. We have a couple of those actually.
Then Quinn Stagger says, I missed it. Can you do it again? No.
Rewind.
Watch the VOD back.
That's right.
We're very accommodating, not that accommodating. Otherwise, we would get trolled constantly. But what I just showed you in painting skin is no different than how you paint everything. You could watch that video and you could paint anything you want to paint. Use the same thing if you want to have smooth transitions between colors, you know, and all you have to do is paint a color down, then mix it with the next color you plan to use. 50-50. and then paint that color down and move them. If you paint like I do from dark to light, then you just move each color closer to the highlight area. And keep doing that step by step, layer by layer, until you run out of space, and that's how you know. And what you'll have to get good at is judging which colors and how much to put on there so that when you run out of space, you've gone as bright as you want to. Because what happens a lot of times is that you run into a situation where you're like, oh, but I really want this to be brighter, and you don't have any more space to put color on. So that's the only thing you really got to be careful with. And by careful, it just means that until you get used to how much color that is, you might find yourself, redoing some areas. And if you're just joining us or haven't been following along, I am just kind of going in and paint by numbers base coating some of these areas so I can get a better idea of what I want these materials to be. These colors won't stay necessarily what they are. I'm just trying to get a feel for, like, there's a lot of leather here, and I'm like, how many different base colors of leather can I create that are going to look good against my idea for the things that will stand out the most, which on this model will be the metals, and the leather armor. Everything else is kind of subservient to that. Just needs to make sure that it'll work well with the dark brown leather I want to do, which will have some very warm components to it.
Derpstick says that did help, and I guess the size of the mini doesn't matter because I feel like the size does play into a factor how much the previous color is still visible.
Well, yes, how much you can paint, right? So your brushstrokes get smaller quicker when you paint on a Space Marine face.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you can't use 3 colors on a Space Marine face, right? You just have to make sure, like on that model, our brushstrokes and coverage started fairly large because the face is larger, and then they didn't get tiny brushstrokes until the final highlights. You'll be at shorter brushstrokes very quickly when painting a Space Marine. Make sense? But the process doesn't change at all. Scale is irrelevant. You're still doing the same thing. You're painting one color on, and if you do it in a way like I do, you start with your dark shade, you put that color on, base everything, then you retract you mix it with your next brighter color and you retract that, and then you mix it, then you use your next color and retract it, and retract it, and retract it, and retract it. There we technically use dark flesh plus shadow flesh, shadow flesh plus tan flesh, and tan flesh. So we turn 3 colors into 5, right? And I had enough space to put 5 colors down. You might find that you do dark flesh plus shadow flesh plus tan flesh, and that gets you as bright as you want to be. Or you don't start with dark flesh. If it's a small mini, maybe you start with shadow flesh if your skin wasn't bright enough, and then you mix it with tan flesh, and then tan flesh by itself, and those 3 get you where you want to be. So you don't have to use 5 colors. You're just trying to start with a darker base, move to a mid-tone, and move to a highlight, and not have them be garish. And like the original poster had asked, is it feels like when he's doing his highlights, it feels like a blob of paint because it's too much contrast. When you put a bright highlight on something like a Space Marine shoulder pad, it can feel like too much contrast. So if you blend over a smoother area to get there, you won't have that final dot that just looks like paint, spilled paint, because it's like a circle of paint on a sea of darker color. And highlights can be that. It can go, if you go too bright on an edge highlight, and it looks like Tron, it looks like a pinstripe suit. You have to blend to that highlight in order to keep it smooth looking.
Could I see that miniature you just did really quick? The witch?
The face?
Yeah. Just want to too. Yeah.
And that's why when you get that mindset that you just paint the base and then every color you add goes closer to your highlight, because I paint from dark to light, and I would recommend you choose to do the same, because every brush stroke should move towards your highlight. So if you go from the start and you Zenithal prime your model, take a picture of it, so now you know where your darkness and your brightness should be, then it's already a paint by numbers kit. You just put every paint, and every one you go goes closer to the brighter area. And then you just judge based on size of the miniature and the area you're painting how many layers you can do to get there. And that's where the judgment comes in. Because if you have a very small face, teeny tiny face, you may only need 2 or 3 colors to do it. A base coat, a mid-tone, and then just a little bit of highlight poked on there. And if you do your highlight thin, like I did, it'll blend into the other color no matter what. It won't be as bright as it came out of the bottle, because it's thin and it's allowing the base coat to show through, but you can stipple it on there or paint it on there, and you won't get that garish, blotch of paint on the face look. Yeah, change the size of the strokes and the amount of colors you try to fit in, Tadpole. Right? Because I was talking about you can turn 3 colors into 5 or 6, depending on how you want to use it, but you don't need that on every scale, right? And you'll find that you paint a Space Marine's face in fewer colors than you do a Barbarian that has a lot of skin, right? Because if I've got the whole chest, arms, shoulders, and everything to play with, I might be able to put more skin tone on there because, again, it's just more surface area, right? As opposed to just the face.
The mo you know.
The mo you know.
That was a great little bit in my notes.
The mo you know. I'm glad you liked it, Chris. I'm here for you, man.
Are you?
No, not at all. But I like to say it so that it gives you hope. And then I dash your hope on the rocks. And I get pleasure.
Okay. Oh my.
That's exactly not how it works, but
great.
It sounds good. It sounds very wicked, evil, ha 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 ha. And I'm really not that way. But I like to pretend like I am every now and then. I came out today into the sales bullpen, and all of them were sitting there. Kenny was on the phone. Jordan and Phil were having a conversation. And I came out and I gave him the stink eye. I just came out and I
You do that. You do that every once in a while.
just to keep you on your toes. Because everybody, I didn't say anything. They go, what? Why are you looking at us like that? What's going on? And then I just left.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yep. Leave him wondering. Is he mad?
Oh. Is he mad?
What it really does is make sure nobody ever takes me seriously. That's actually what it does. Nobody around here takes me seriously, chat. Nobody.
During your example, while I was recording, while I was replying to chat, while I was making sure everything was looking good at the same time, I was telling chat my plans, my grandmaster plans for the palette cam and the macros that I'm going to be making for it. So that,
basically, he was lying to you, chat.
No. So that I have many options for the palette cam, so that I don't put my Jason in a box.
Is that what you're telling me? Is that the lies we tell
That's
ourselves today?
Not a lot. Warwick has a question. When you Zenithal prime, is it just a few sprays on the mini? New to this, and I've just primed all my minis black and about to Zenithal prime, but worried I'll overdo it. I'll let Jason answer that, and I will also link a video for you.
Yeah, I was going to say the video shows off really well
Yes.
how to pull that off with the rattle cans.
Yep.
But it's the same concept with airbrush as well. The goal when doing a Zenithal highlight is to make sure that as you're adding your light color onto the model, that you keep it spraying from the primary lighting direction only at first until you get the brightness you want. And then you just do a nice subtle spray from the opposite direction. So like on this model, if I were going to do a Zenithal highlight on her, let's say I wanted all the light coming from the direction of the face, I'd spray the whole model black. Then I would rotate the model like this, and I would spray from a... Can you back out one?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I always talk about it from an idea of 10 and 2. Think of your hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2, right? With 12 noon being straight down, 10 o'clock being over here, 2 o'clock being over here. Choose 10 or 2 normally, right? And it's just dependent upon which side of the model you think the light would be best from, you know? If I was actually doing her, I'd probably choose 10, right? So that we're getting, like I said, this part of the model is the highlight, right? Because I feel like this model wants to be looked at like this, so you get the benefit of the what is this called, a khopesh? I don't remember, the sword, and the bulk of the bust, and then the head, the gruesome head, is just in kind of profile, right? Because the head is not the focus. So if you sprayed from this way, it's kind of saying the head is the focus, but here it's the model. So if we sprayed from this direction, you want to have all of your white or whatever bright color you're spraying down come from this direction only. Don't move your hand like this and spray it. Literally keep it over here, right, from this direction, and just move it like this to get coverage, right? Think of it in terms of the spray can is the sun, so the sun is not going to move around the model. The sun's only going to sit still and shed its light. Now, it's a sphere, so you can do like this, but you're just rotating your hand to make sure that the paint gets out to here and here and here and here and here, but it's always centered in the same spot. So you're just moving it and spraying it to make sure you get it. Then when you rotate the model like this, it'll still be all black because none of the paint can get here. And that may be too much. It may be too bright to too dark. And then you can turn the model to the 2 side, if you're 10 here and spraying, and then you turn to the 2 side where it's pure black, pull the can back a little bit, and just give it a quick dusting so that it'll turn this kind of gray. It won't be white because you pulled the can back, so not as much paint is going to clump up in areas as it was when you're close. I do 6 to 8 inches with the white when you're doing the main one. And then when you rotate it around, pull it back to like 10, I think we talk about in the video. I don't remember the numbers. And then just dust it real quick with one pass. And some details will pop out, but it'll still be bright and dark. And that's the way to do it. The key is to make sure your bright color doesn't go all over the model. That's how we win in baseball.
That's how we win in baseball.
It had nothing to do with baseball, but it sounded good. But it sounded good, Chris. So I'm sticking to it. You understand?
Oh, I understand.
Do you understand, Chris?
Oh, I understand.
Just asking. I'm not being forceful, Chris, but do you understand?
Oh, I understand.
All right. I'm going to trust you this time, Chris. Trust. It's the foundation on which all solid relationships are built. Especially relationships between painter and producer.
That's right.
And I need us to be better, Chris.
Well, how do we be better?
You have to tell me, Chris, because you're the producer.
I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Okay. I'm just checking.
I think so.
Okay. I wish you'd stop lying to my chat. Can I be that honest with you?
You could.
Okay. I won't, but it's good to know I should. Chad, I'm sticking up for you. Trying here, Chad. Yeah, see? That's like the cuff to this glove she has on. Think. I think I'm liking this. The kind of turban-y thing she's wearing, I don't know what color to do on it.
The top?
Yeah. Again, it has a very, like, you know, mummy, like you would have dug her out of a tomb feel to the model. So I feel like some of it would be very earthy tones, whether it should have been or not. But I don't know that that's where I want to go. The skulls on the headdress are metal. So, you know, because this kind of crown thing she's got. The skulls are a molded, formed part of that. They're not real skulls. So that could be either the same silver we're doing everywhere else, which I think would be good. Mm-hmm. In which case, this probably wants to be something a little bit warmer. But I also like the idea of kind of a, you know, a mummy wrap cloth. You know? If I could just paint it. I'm just going to paint it with this color I have on the brush and we'll see. This is dark golden brown.
Mo says she has a Middle Eastern assassin vibe to me.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Like assassin, right? I mean, she's a wraith queen. We've given kind of that undead feel, but it has that, you know, buried under the pyramids kind of feel, or, you know, desert tomb rather than, like a Far East or Native American or South American flare. It doesn't really have any of that. If there's any part
Looks
of
like cloth, yeah.
the world I'd put it in was more of a dry, dusty area of the world. This doesn't feel like the type of, clothing you'd wear in a moist, humid area. I could be making all that up, but that's what I'm thinking. It's all made up fantasy anyway, man. Can't convince me otherwise.
I guess so. At the end of the day.
It's all just made up nonsense. It's like when I tell Phil he's making up words, he goes, technically all words are made up. And he's right.
This is true.
And he's right.
This is true.
All words are made up. Made up nonsense.
What would be a good vampire flesh color workup?
Depends. What color flesh do you want your vampire to be? I don't know. Vampires aren't a thing that I think of in terms of having a flesh color. Vampires are people who are no longer part of the living. So you could have a African flesh vampire. You could have a Middle Eastern flesh vampire. You could have, the standard Eastern European flesh vampire, in which case you've got
real, very pale.
Yeah, very pale. So I like basing with more greens and then working up to your very pale flesh tones. That works great. The way we did that undead horse here recently would be a great vampire flesh. The flesh on this model would be a good vampire flesh, although, we've kind of scooted things into more jadey greens here. But it's very Wraith-like, in my opinion. We've used some warm flesh to give it a little bit of yellow. It doesn't feel like it used to be human, though, which was not the goal. This feels more otherworldly. So if you're trying to root it in, ancient human, then I would pick, more traditional skin tones, pale. But I like working in, greens and grays into it. Gray blues work really good as bases for it too. You try to just do cooler colors, I think, because the more warm colors you use, the things that lead you into pinkish skins and stuff, make it feel alive. Now, there's a good story to be told there, that your vampire still has blood in their veins, like after they, exsanguinate a customer, then, maybe they have more life in their cheeks. Has he eaten recently, or is he very gaunt and super depleted of blood, at which point in time maybe you use more grays and greens and yellows and things like that. Or if he's freshly eaten, then maybe you do it as if it's very healthy skin. There's a story to be told in all of that. And a lot of it depends on the sculpt. Is a sculpt monstrous? Some vampires are depicted as being like almost demonic.
Depends on the story.
Fangs bared.
Yeah.
Eyes looking like snake eyes, kind of, demonic slits. Versus, more dramatic persona, lofty Count Dracula style.
Right.
Owns $1 million mansion someplace and entices travelers, unaware travelers, into his den at night.
Jason.
No.
It's about that time.
What? How is that possible? How do you let this happen day after day? We've had meetings about this. We've had multiple meetings about this. This is true.
But this is the end.
This is the end.
My only friend, the end. It's a really great song.
It is, actually.
I love that song. Oh, chat.
How you doing over there, Chris?
We're doing. Here are the beautiful links.
That's an okay stopping point. We've got a lot of base colors on her. She's going to be definitely in a world of pseudo browns. Now, I've based in a lot of browns, but I plan on taking some of these up to almost parchment color. So there will be some lighter colors in there, but the basis and foundation for a lot of them is going to be nestled in browns, warmer and cooler browns. We're going to have some fun with leather. I've got a good reference pick of an old shoulder bag that I'm going to use to show you how I'm going to do like all of the leather on her chest armor. Should be fun. Just because you show up on time one day since this started doesn't mean you're off the hook. Wait, whoa. It's only day 2 this week.
We've been on time.
Yeah, we've been on time.
Because we are
Where have you
always
been,
on
Mo?
time. We've always been on time.
We're always on time. It's Mo that's late. And then he blames us. Fun with leather sounds like a great Friday night. Oops. Oops. But definitely. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's, again, it's just I want to say it's a simple way to think in terms of painting any material, and then your material just has to determine whether it wants to go a little bit brighter because it's shinier, a little bit less bright because it's more matte. But here we showed you how in still midtones, because tan flesh is by no means a super bright color, but we can show you how you can still do skin that reads like it has, oils in it, has a little bit of shine to it. And you can use that 3-color blending technique to, scale it up and get a lot more depth out of it. And this is just using skin tones. Normally we would tell you underpaint this with like purple first too, and then you get even more dynamic color to it. But this is just if you want to do something simple, you can use this technique on anything. And it just shows you how to utilize your paint so that you can repeat this no matter what it is, if it's cloth or skin or metal or whatever. So, you mean Chris is late, not me? I'm always waiting on him. Not true. I have to defend my boy. He's usually waiting on me.
We're always on time.
He falls on that sword a lot.
We are always on time.
But we are always on time is what I meant to say. So
We've never been late.
Not live. Yeah, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. Manufacture and do all the craziness right here.
That's right.
Not Lob says, this is the best channel you found so far for me. Well, thank you.
Nice.
We've been doing this a long time. We also manufacture. We are Monument Hobby, so we manufacture pro acrylic paints. So all of the paints and brushes you see us use are our own. You can check out our store. That's our outro, by the way. So great segue. Chris, did you put the links up?
I did.
They already blew past? What?
I did.
Mathis says we're only on time to end the stream, Chris.
Oh,
With friends like these.
Yikes.
But everyone, make sure you check out the links that Chris is putting up in the chat. You can check out monumenthobbies.com, our storefront, on the dealer locator as well, the FLGS link that he's putting up there. So you can check out where to purchase our products. We'd love to have you give us a shot next time you want some new paints and brushes and stuff. I think you'll love it. And then you can come here and ask us all sorts of questions, and we'll show you how to use it. But like always, we enjoy spending our time with you. Hope you learned something today. It had a bunch of fun. We didn't have many fart jokes today. So it's a little light on fart jokes, so we have to have...
We talked about real serious painting issues. Oh, that's my least favorite one.
Rough one.
Let's dig into that more in our next session.
Oh, that didn't go well together. So thank you so much for hanging with us. We really enjoyed it. If you're new around here, please hit the follow button if you're on Twitch, or the subscribe if you're over on the YouTubes. And make sure to check out the live tab on YouTube, because that's where all these wonderful shows go. After we hit the stop button, so you can catch up if you missed something, if you showed up late, or if you just want to go back and catch up on what we did on a particular model along the road, you can find them all over there. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to stick around and join the Discord. I didn't see anything. Did Ghost put anything up there?
No.
Did we get a fun one today?
Ghost Hunter.
Nearly 6,000 amazing artists over on our Discord wishing
There
Ghost
is.
Hunter was here to tell us what to do, but he's not, so we lose. So join us on our Discord. It's a lot of fun. And stick around. Chris is going to find us somebody to raid, so show love in the chat we wind up in. And we'll catch you back here tomorrow for a Wednesday show. Adios, gang.